Hello everyone, in RxJava free tutorial part 11. In this video we learn how to use utility and error handling operators. So basically utility operators are all operators which cannot be clearly classified to one of the other's categories, right? And error handling operators allows you to utilize different strategies when something bad happened while your stream produces items, for example when some exception is thrown. Alright, without further ado, let's start with describing utility operators. The first operator we're going to describe is delay operator. What it does, it basically delays emissions of the items by specifying amount of time in the delay method. So in our example, I'm emitting hello world string. Delay is 2 seconds according to the argument passed to the delay method. And of course, our program prints after 2 seconds hello world string to the console. Timeout is very useful when you want to specify maximum amount of time between emission of 2 items. So for example, again, I'm emitting hello world string. I'm specifying timeout to be 1 second, and it means that when my observable doesn't emit any item within this 1 second, on error callback will be called. So of course we don't see it in this example because our, let's say, emission goes smoothly and the exception is not thrown, but you need to be aware that timeout, in case that this observable doesn't emit items within this 1 second, this timeout would basically throw an exception and the on error method will be called. We don't have on error implemented here, but you need to be aware that something like this will happen with timeout operator. Then we have observe on. It is quite hard, I would say. I mean, it is definitely harder than the other one, but what you need to know, whenever you see observe on, you need to think in terms of threading. So what observe on does, it changes the thread on which we observe items in the stream. So in this case, again, our great example, hello world string is emitted. We are changing thread on which we are going to observe this item, and this thread is basically new thread which we are creating using schedulers class. And we can see that before our stream we are operating on the main thread, then we are changing the thread, I mean the thread on which we observe items. So we see that in subscribe method, our thread on which we are observing items is called Rx new thread scheduler -1. And hello world is of course printed. So observe on is used to change thread on which we observe items. Then we have subscribe on, and as you can see, the logs are identical, right? Subscribe on and observe on, in my case, have identical logs. So what is the difference? So the difference is basically that subscribe on changes the thread on which we produce items. So in comparison to observe on, we change the thread on which we observe items, and in case of on subscribe on, we change the thread on which we produce items. Of course, in logs we don't see the difference because here we are still on the main thread. I'm subscribing on to the new thread, and you don't see it in the logs, but actually observable just emits this string on this new thread. And of course, because I didn't change the thread using the observe on, the thread remains the same within the entire stream, and the current thread name is Rx new thread scheduler -1. So in this case, let's say emission of the items and observing the items happen on the same thread. We'll be talking about the threading and scheduling it more details in a future video, but for now I think this is enough knowledge you need to know about observe on and subscribe on. Then we have do on next. This is quite useful when you want to do some logging in case your stream emits new items. So for example, here I'm emitting 2 items, number 1, number 2. And whenever the item is emitted, I want to log some info regarding this. So in this case, I'm basically printing log some info string. And as you can see, for both items, the log some info is printed to the console, but only for 2, because of this filter, I see number 2 in subscribe, right? Because filter filtered out this number 1. So as I said, this is useful when you want to basically add some additional action when onNext happens within a stream. And lastly, we have doOnDispose. Having that operator, you will know when the stream was disposed and you can take some actions here. For example, release no longer needed resources and stuff like that. If you don't know what is the disposing, check my previous video on that subject. I'm pretty sure that after watching this, you will have good understanding for what reason we are using disposing in RxJava free world. Let's jump to error handling operators. And one advice from my side, maybe, please always use error handling mechanism, not only when it comes to RxJava free, but in general in programming. Don't leave empty catch statements and stuff like that. I think everyone will be happy, and especially your colleagues in a team. Alright, enough sermons, let's start with the retry. So retry works in a way that whenever we have an error thrown in the stream will be repeated by the amount specified in the retry operator. And of course, in this example, we have at one point division by 0, right? I'm trying to divide 2 by 0 while mapping the items, so the exception is thrown. But I have retry specified, and this number is equal to 1. So it means that my stream will be repeated once again. But of course the situation is the same. I'm still trying to divide 2 by 0. And because of that, our retry count is, let's say, equal to 0. The exception is thrown and my onError method is called. So I have throwable here and I'm obtaining message from this throwable, and as you can see, we basically end up with error division by 0. Then we have onError return item. This is quite easy to understand. Basically, whenever we have an error in a stream, exception, stuff like that, we can define what we want to return from the stream. And this is the same situation, the same stream as we have had above, right? So I'm emitting 2, 1 and 0, and then I have map operator in which I'm dividing 2 by firstly this, then this, and lastly by 0. And of course, when I'm trying to divide by 0, the exception is thrown, but I have onError return item in place, and in that case I'm returning -1, and this is what we can see in the console here. And last one I want to describe today when it comes to error handling operators is onError resume with. This works in such a way that when the exception is thrown, we can basically create or use new observable, right? New stream. So the same example, division by 0, and because exception is thrown and I have this mechanism in place, I'm emitting different observable, hoping that this one will not throw an error, right? And as you can see, I see numbers 1, 2, and we don't see 3 or anything like that because we have exception thrown at this place. But then I'm resuming with different observable, different stream of items, and then it goes basically smoothly with 5, 6, and 7. And this is what is printed to the console. Alright, so after 3 videos regarding operators, you should have more knowledge when and how to use them. Just a reminder, of course, we didn't describe all the operators. RxJava 3 consists basically of a ton of other things. So if you want to know more, check their documentation. And if you find this video useful, it would be nice if you can leave a like. If you want to see more, simply subscribe to my channel. For now, thanks for watching and see you in the next video. Bye.